And we are back with Lisa Waters-Lane in the studio. She comes each week with your garden question. Just what are people talking about? And what are your neighbors asking? What are they coming into the garden center with bags of pestilence and disease? Or what are they seeing in the yard? Sometimes if there's 100 gardeners in the neighborhood, let's see if someone's seeing something, let's share that. Instead of a social media outlet, we have the Mountain Gardener with Lisa Waters-Lane. She comes in each week and just shares that with you. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It is good to be here. Autumn is here. It's like it's autumn been here for 2 weeks, and it just feels like it's like my favorite time of year. The mountains of Arizona. It's a famous time of year.
I thought you didn't like fall.
I don't, because it reminds me that spring is over. My favorite time is summer. If I had another daughter or son, I would name them Summer.
It's just such a great Summer.
I don't care. I like it that much. It'd be worthwhile. What's your favorite season?
Fall. Always fall.
Yeah, everyone.
Fall. The nights are cool. The mornings are cool. Days are just right. It's a good time of year.
Just right.
Yeah.
Well, what are people talking about out in the gardens?
Well, our first question is from Penny in Prescott. She has a peony question.
I was hoping you're going to use someone Summer from Chino Valley. We're Bolden.
No. So Penny wants to know, when do you cut back your peonies?
Yeah, good question.
And when is the right time to fertilize the peonies?
Great questions, Penny. Penny. Penny with the peonies.
We're in Prescott.
Penny in Prescott. Peonies. And they'll grow anywhere in the Central Highlands. So anywhere from probably 3,500 foot and above. So that'd be Camp Verde, Cottonwood, Sedona, all the way up to Flagstaff. Peonies are going to grow well. The challenge is going to be that clay soil. So that's what peony have, this real fibrous root mass. And so if they get in real heavy soil and they just sit there, they'll rot on you. So they just sit there and turn to mush. So we've killed a few in our yard. We're masters at killing plants, especially peonies. And we've killed like 3 or 4. I shouldn't say that over the airway. That's like embarrassing.
But we have a heavy clay.
Super ridiculous clay on a north slope, so it never dries. So now we grow peonies in raised beds and containers. Game changer. All of a sudden, they started thriving, living a long time. So obviously, Prescott has got different kinds of soils, depending on what hillside you're looking at. Just make sure the soil drains. We say that 10 times fast, and you're fine. But her question is, Peony, when do you cut them back? Don't feel rushed, Penny. Let them die back naturally. So they're going to start turning color. They'll get this beautiful gold color, like aspen gold, and they're up about knee high to hip high, depending on what variety that you have in your yard. But let them do their thing, because what they'll do is they'll start shutting down. They'll pull all that carbohydrates, all the sugars from the foliage, or pull it down into the roots, and they'll store that stuff up. And so they're actually bulking up on their roots. If you whack off on them, they don't get a chance to do that, and they'll lose that last. It's kind of like vegetables or apples on a tree. Those last few days make a big difference in the taste. If you pick them early, a week early, and ship them to the grocery store, they just don't have the same flavor. Right off the tree, game changer. Well, your peonies are the same way. Those last few days, it's storing up so much of those sugars to make next year's flower that it's important to leave it. Once it dies back and it's all either gold or even brown, that straw colored, then whack them off right to the ground. So, but don't feel rushed. If you're up in the higher elevations, this is broadcast all over. Higher elevations, I really encourage you folks in Williams, Flagstaff, and the White Mountains, the Mogollon Rim, Strawberry, Pine, Lake Top. Leave the foliage on there and then prune it back in like March and April, so that foliage will actually insulate or kind of protect that root. So it keeps some of that cold from permeating down into the heart and taking out some of the eyes. So, but in the lower elevations, if you're below 6,000 feet, whack it off when you're done. When it's brown, you can whack it off anytime you want. Oh, fertilize. She mentioned that too. Do it now. So anything that blooms in the spring, it's really important to fertilize now. So you really want to fertilize everything in the yard before Halloween, but especially peonies, apples, pears, all your fruiting trees, your lilacs, forsythia, flowering quince, anything that blooms in the spring, rhododendrons and azaleas, fertilize all of those. This is the most important feeding of the entire year, no question about it. And if it hasn't bloomed as well as you wanted it to, I'd do it again at the new year. Use all-purpose plant food. It's a 744 all-purpose. It's a organic, but that cottonseed meal mixed in that it just brings the pH down. The plant can pick it up really easily. It's going to store and make next year's flower for you. So really important I do it now. Lilacs, if they've not bloomed well for you, like our lilac's been in bloom since April. It's crazy. Fertilize it now, new year, and you'll get better flowers next spring, guaranteed.
So what are your thoughts on adding bone meal or superphosphate? Would that be a good idea?
It could, if you've got a stubborn one. I mean, it just hasn't bloomed in 2 or 3 years. Yeah. But really, if you're fertilizing regularly, you shouldn't need that. What superphosphate is 0-18-0. Bone meal is 0-10-0. It's all that middle number, phosphorus. And so, yeah, if you want to enter it in the county fair, you load it up with phosphorus and it just almost glows at night. The flowers are so bright and so big. We go through, I mean, the main thing is all-purpose food. And then I do get a 20-pound bag every year. I just sprinkle it on every once in a while through the autumn sage, your Russian sage, echinaceas, gaillardias, all those things that bloom a lot. That's a way to keep them blooming a lot. Or if you want a bigger flower, not just flowers, I want flowers on steroids. Superphosphate makes a big difference. So that can help, especially peonies, because you kind of want that whole thing covered with flowers in spring, that fragrance to permeate.
It's a one-shot deal.
Yeah, maybe it should bloom for a month and just be, oh my gosh, I can't believe how beautiful that is. Okay. So superphosphate helps. You do it in addition. It's not one or the other.
Right.
It's mainly the food is a 744 all-purpose plant food, and kind of the snack, the addition, the frosting on the fruit, on the fruit food would be the superphosphate.
Right. Okay, so Henry in Prescott Valley has a question. He had 2 red yuccas in his yard that were starting to look kind of funky. Yeah. So he went out to see what was going on, touched them, and they basically fell over because they had no roots.
Gophers. Yeah.
Well, he didn't think it was gophers.
Yeah, okay. It could be.
So any other thoughts of what else could do it?
So a couple things can take those out. So yuccas have a real fleshy root structure and it's very high in starch. So sometimes javelina will come in and dig that up and eat it. If it's not that, the other culprit, there's only really 2 that I can think of. Grubs. What do you think? I mean, there's some white grubs that can go in there and eat the roots. I mean,
I've seen yuccas. Grubs love yuccas.
Yep.
Gophers love yuccas.
They're sweet. They're tasty. They make tequila out of them.
Right. But if you're not seeing any gopher mounds or gopher activity, then you kind of go to the default.
Grubs. Yeah, grubs. Yep. Coming, I would say the test would be take your yucca and dig a test hole. Just take a hand trowel. Just beside there. So the roots somewhere. Dig around in there. And you'll see grubs right away. It's not just one. These are white kind of C-shaped worms. And what they do for a living, they live their entire life down below the ground and they eat the roots of plants. And they like certain plants. They got their favorite thing, and yucca's one of those. And they congregate by literally I've seen by the thousands. It could be frightening, like a Martian horror movie. That's what it looks like. The ground is moving when you dig a test hole. If you see one, you've got many coming to get us. Super easy. There's a grub killer we sprinkle on there, water it in, eliminates grubs for a year. So it's a great product. It's called Grub Killer. We don't get original here. Just we're just gardeners. You got grubs, we got Grub Killer. Take it right out. So also, if you've got little cone-shaped holes in your yard, those are skunks are eating the grubs. That's another indication. If you've got these little perfectly shaped cones dug into the ground, that's where the skunk is eating the grubs. And so now it's an indicator, I have grub problems. So you can read nature that way and get a feel for it. We are out of time. Boy, that was a good question.
You just talk too much. That's why.
I like talking to pretty women. Do you want to go down that path? Ken and Lisa Lane, the Mountain Gardeners, will be right back right after this.